This podcast is being recorded on Wadawurrung land. We pay our respect to the traditional custodians of this country, elders past and present. We extend that respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. This episode is proudly brought to you by a company that lives and breathes period pain and has a key focus on supporting people with endometriosis, which is Hey Sister. Hey Sister is a potent bio-relief for period pain and PMS that actually works, is research-backed and Australian-grown, made and ran. You can use my code JadeEndo20 for 20% off your first order at heysister.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jade Walker Way. Yes, I've already fucked it up. I do it all the time.
Take two.
Yeah, let's see it. Okay, and action.
We need like a thing.
I need one of those.
Oh, actually, that's what I'm gonna buy you for your birthday one day. So I'm gonna buy like a little thing that's gonna have like your little cartoon face on the side.
Oh,
like
love
a little
that
action thing.
I need one of those director chairs as well.
Yeah, and then you need like a little assistant one for Millie.
For you.
Well, okay, I'll take that. Millie,
It's a job offer.
Yeah, you can just stay on the ground. I'll take that free of charge.
Oh, so good. So it's Adeno Awareness Month. And so I thought, who do I know who has adenomyosis? And I actually know quite a few people, but the first person that came to my head straight off the bat was beautiful Patti Kendall.
Bless.
Thank you for coming on.
Most welcome.
So Patti, she was one of my clients many years ago now, actually.
Yeah.
And then there were all these little like things that happen along the way that actually kept us connected. Like we realized we both see the same exercise physiologist, Jace Kelly.
Yeah, I think we owe him some credit. That was like, he brought us together.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I mean, like I was already a client, but
but totally, because we hadn't seen each other for a while, and then I rock up to an appointment one day, and you were there.
Yeah,
and Jace was like, "You know her, you know Patti." I was
like,
"Yeah." And then like we both went through some breakups around the same time.
Yeah, I remember that. That was fresh.
And then we realized how we're both very similar in our neurodivergence, like full-blown ADHD.
I think we almost got diagnosed around the same time too.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
there you go.
Like last year.
Yeah.
Kind of almost. Yeah.
And we're both like fairly sure we're both autistic as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Like when I see your stories, I'm like, I just feel like I'm looking at a version of myself.
Yeah. And that's why you and I get along so fucking well. Like, I think that's the thing is like.
Well, I mean, today when you were like 10:30. Neither of us.
We knew it wouldn't be 10:30.
It was never going to be 10:30. But like, I was like, I'm leaving the house at 11:15, but cool.
Yeah, exactly.
See you soon.
It's almost like we know like a time that you set for an ADHD is like the pre-time.
Oh yeah,
like,
that's like the time where
time.
I start, like if I see the deadline pop up, that's my panic time. That's like kind of in my head. I'm like, that's when I need to be ready by, and I don't actually factor in like I just like time. Time blindness.
Time blindness. Honestly, that was something that made so much sense to me. And by the way, this podcast is about adenomyosis, by the way. But hey, it's actually fitting because this month is also Autism Acceptance Month. So, that's actually really perfect to tie in.
Yeah.
Even though our challenges this morning were probably more our ADHD, but like there are a lot of things that are that touch of the tism as well.
Oh yeah, the tism is strong. The force is strong with this one.
Yeah, I love that. So going back to adenomyosis, though, I think, there's a lot of good awareness now around endometriosis, which you also have. But, something that people a lot have expressed to me is for some reason people aren't talking about adeno as much. And I feel like where endo used to be the secret child, like now it's like adeno.
I feel like we've pushed for all this awareness for endo, but adeno is like that little sister that's kind of like being kept in the background whilst endo is getting all these awards, even though they're not even the awards or like the recognition that it should be getting.
It's like they're trying. It's like getting there, but we're still way off. Like,
literally. It's like this pending thing that's constantly like always loading.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and I think like on my part, like I even beat myself up sometimes and think I need to do more posts on adeno, but because I didn't personally have adeno, I can't speak as authentically on it. And sometimes I get imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to talk about adeno when I don't even know what it's like? But obviously like I've seen plenty of patients who have it, because so many people with endo unfortunately do have adeno as well. So let's dive into your story and include endo in there, of course, as well. It equally needs to be included. So where did this all start for you, even before you'd probably even heard of the word endometriosis or adenomyosis?
Yeah, well, I definitely heard of endo first before adeno. I didn't even know adeno was a thing until I think I met you, or when I met my gyno. And then they were like, hey, that sounds like adeno. But back to the start. So it all kind of started as like typical teen girls. Like we get our cycle for the first time. It's really irregular, painful, heavy. And I'm kind of looking at my girlfriends being like, how are they managing this so much better than I am? Like I kind of am growing up in a small country town. Like you don't really have awareness of that sort of stuff. And so you kind of just perceive yourself as like, oh, maybe I'm just weak, or maybe I'm just not built to deal with this. And like, I guess, and then like even living on a farm, it's kind of like it's not like you have neighbors close by, or like you're even more isolated with people who are going through stuff like that. So I was kind of like, oh, I just kind of got to grit and bear this. And then so a lot of sick days.
How old are you when you got your period?
14. I was kind of like a late bloomer, and I guess like recounting all of this, and I have so much, it's like a little version of me that just went through so much, and I'm like, oh, I just wish I could go back and say it is actually just one or two things. Like it's not just a reflection on you.
So from when you got your period, did the pain start pretty instantly?
Oh yeah. Yeah, massively. Like couldn't really stand up properly. I hid it quite well, and I think that was probably the worst thing, is I got used to hiding it and disguising it quite well, continued to play sport, continued to go to school. And then as we know, that just fatigues you even more, and especially when you have a long cycle, that's not great for that.
I always reflect on PT at school and how like we were always just forced to do it. And even as girls, if we had our periods, often that wasn't a good enough excuse. It's like you've got to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is more awareness now around how we truly do fluctuate in what we're capable of across our cycle. But still back then especially, it was just like you've got to keep up with the boys.
Yeah, yeah. And I used to hate that there was girls who would say every week, oh, I have my period.
Yeah, they would take advantage.
Yeah,
100%.
And then I was over there kind of being like, oh, I can't say this because they don't look like they're in pain. And if I'm over there kind of like bent over being like, I can't run, I have my period, it just kind of seems like I'm at equal weight to them. And if not, I'm struggling even more, but I'm probably making it up.
Oh, yeah. And that's it. The gaslighting of ourselves.
Yeah. And I reflected on that recently, and I'll go into that a bit later about how that carries through into your 20s as well. But yeah, I went to a fair few doctors, got put on the pill, as all young girls do when you go and say, I have hectic amount of pain. But obviously my symptoms persevered and pushed through the pill. The pill didn't really do anything other than kind of just had the adverse effects. Finished school, went to uni, decided, hey, I'm going to take myself off the pill. And that was really hard, because then everything kind of came, I don't know how you describe, everything just became so much more full on. Like my symptoms became so much harder to manage. I was almost passing out at work, and my partner at the time, when I first started hearing about endo, were like, no, you don't have endo. And I was like, oh, this is where it's kind of like I'm hiding it so well. And I feel like if I actually complained and if I took as many days off that I felt like I needed, then it would seem so much more severe than it actually was. And then, started getting to a point where I was almost passing out at work. I would be at work and I would bleed through my clothes, and I'd have to go buy another pair of clothes whilst I was at work.
Oh my gosh.
And then continue working, because, I mean, you just kind of have to. It's just like the
we told ourselves we had to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Even
yeah.
though we should absolutely not have to.
Yeah, like if that happened to a guy and he had to go buy another change of clothes and then come back and continue working.
Exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah, and not discrediting men here. Like
No.
I'm surrounded by so many beautiful men, but I just feel like the weight of our problem is not seen in how heavy and severe it actually is.
Absolutely. And that's it. Like I am surrounded by men that when I tell these stories to, they do acknowledge, they're like, Jesus, like if that was me, you know? Like,
yeah.
And they do acknowledge, they're like, wow, you girls really do put up with a lot of stuff, you know? And it's like, that's what we've been trying to say.
Yeah. And so, yeah, painful periods going for like 2-3 weeks. And then I'd have a break of maybe 1 week and then it'd return for a week. And then I'd have a break of 4 to 5 weeks and then I'd come back again for 3 weeks. And then like painful intercourse, not knowing why, kind of looking at like both sides. Is it like from him or is it from me? And then COVID hit. And so you can't really do anything about it there. That's when I kind of started looking at this and started looking at, okay, this is not normal for me to be at work, almost passing out, people having to drive me home, calling my mum in tears saying I can't get up off the bathroom floor. Like it's not normal. COVID hit. And because it's not seen as an emergency or like life-threatening condition, everything kind of got put on hold for it. Moved down here and my beautiful cousin Tess Kosop-Cole is very well equipped with endo and she was already kind of halfway through her journey with discovering endo and saw yourself, referred me to you, and with your help and guidance I started my journey with it and understanding, okay, I probably have endo. And then adeno kind of came into the picture and I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense because like I was friends with people who had endo but they weren't having like painful sex or they weren't getting this feeling like someone was literally like stabbing a knife through their organs or like they weren't feeling like they had to pee all the time even though they didn't. And I was like, why is this not adding up? Like there has to be something else. And then adeno came into the picture and I was like, oh, sense this makes.
How old are you now?
27.
And so when did the diagnosis come along? How old?
I was 25.
Yeah.
So I had it for 11 years.
Yeah.
Before we kind of.
Yeah. And it's not an uncommon story, right? It's like 11 years. Oh, yeah, that's actually good in the grand scheme of endo, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's just so
I know.
Stupid.
And
yeah.
then like you've got women out there who are getting diagnosed at 35, 40, even some women in their 60s who are past menopause.
Yeah.
And you think, wow, I've only dealt with this for such a short period of time compared to them. But that shouldn't invalidate your experience as well.
100%. And I wanted to really help the listeners to differentiate between endo and adeno here in terms of the symptoms because like most of the symptoms you mentioned can be both, but there are some differences that stand out to me here would be the heavy bleeding in particular.
Yeah.
Even though some people with endo may get heavy bleeding, where the endo is located doesn't usually cause heavy menstrual bleeding as much. But because adenomyosis is actually within the uterine wall, then yes, that is going to cause some heavy bleeding.
Yeah.
So often when I would get patients that would tell me that they're having severe heavy bleeding where they're like soaking through like you've mentioned and coupled with the severe pain, I'm like, that is cause for concern in terms of anything that can be happening in the uterine wall. And it could also be fibroids or polyps as well, but a really good advanced like sonographer who's possibly also a trained surgeon or, you know, someone who works in the endo space as well.
Which also, by the way, is so rare. Like you get sonographers who are not equipped in that sort of stuff and you're getting sent to them with these complex issues and they're just a regular, no disrespect to the sonographers out there, love you, appreciate your work, but they're not equipped in recognizing those sorts of things and it goes unmissed so often.
And sometimes they don't even tell you what was on the report.
Yeah, you don't get I think I've probably had about 3 or 4 in my time and not once they ever mention adeno until I went to my most recent gyno.
And how long ago was that you've got the official diagnosis with adeno?
2 years ago. So received at the same time I got my endo because they wanted to kind of go in. Simon Gordon is my gyno. I love him. He's great. And yeah, I basically presented him with all of these files, documents from previous gynos, doctors, just my records. And he was like, yep, I can hands down say that you have adeno and endo, but I obviously have to do the laparoscopic surgery just to kind of confirm what I'm looking at, just in case it's something else.
So he could actually tell just off your reports that you brought him.
Yeah. And he was like, how have people kind of let you continue? Like, how has no one picked up on this? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you tick every box. Like, it's not like you tick one or two or like one from each or kind of thing, or like 4 or 5. I was like, well, I didn't realize that this was like the severity. I thought this is just kind of the norm. We're told periods are painful. Sometimes sex is painful. So it's kind of, you slip in through underneath those kind of common terms that you hear from doctors.
And this is why you can see so many people in the endo space are angry and rising up.
Yeah.
And it breeds a lot of feminists. Like,
yes.
And, sometimes I even catch myself getting really riled up and sounds like I'm a man hater sometimes because I'm like, it was a male doctor. And I'm like, no, it's not that at all. It's just like, that's just often though what we've been like a victim to.
Yeah.
And so we have a right to be angry, and the only way that we can make change is if we start coming out with our swords and be like, we've had enough. Like,
Well, yeah, it's so debilitating when you've got this and you're having to convince medical professionals, people who have studied for years and years and years and should be equipped with the knowledge to deal with this, considering that we are so-called 50% of the population, and having to convince a professional that these are real symptoms that you experience day in and day out, and have been for the last 10 years is exhausting. So it is quite liberating when you go see someone and they're like, oh yeah, 100% babe, let's open you right up. I want to see what's in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's like, hats off to our big name surgeons like Simon Gordon and Tim Soltis and Russell and all those people that most of them are actually male. So, there are some really beautiful ones out there doing all the work. And if you're listening and you don't know how to find a decent surgeon, I've got a whole list of advanced trained excision surgeons.
That was really handy, by the way. I used that.
Oh, good. Yeah. I think that's probably been like one of my favorite things that like I've been able to do to give back, is just because, you can go searching in Facebook groups. That's very timely. And I was just like, even though some people have attempted to put lists together, they've never been super extensive. Like, and they might be missing some things.
And also I feel like they all come from personal experience, and that changes day to day. And like what one person may feel with one may not be representative of another. So like I feel like coming from a professional like yourself, you have kind of a good understanding of what makes a good health professional.
Yeah, and that's it. Like from my own personal experience with endo and other patients, with all the feedback that they would give me, and then the feedback within the group, the Facebook group, Natural Medicine for Endometriosis, which is where that file is, people would start to tell me, what is their bedside manner like? Are they more Zoladex happy? Are they, and so I'll be honest and give people that feedback, but also be able to arm them with like, okay, so this surgeon, they're brilliant. I really love them, but just be mindful that they love to give people Zoladex. And that's something I want you to investigate. Like, make sure you go in with all the informed information. Information first.
And that's so handy as well. Sometimes you go in there and it's kind of like, whoa, this is not what I was expecting, or like, you just feel like you're fighting against a prescription that's been handed to you.
And I know what I was like. Like I used to just do whatever doctors told me because, you trust them. And
100%. They're the professional. You're the person that's seeking their guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I reflect a lot how I think a lot of it was also my like old people pleasing ways, how I used to just like 100%. Be very agreeable.
And when
of course, no, that's what you reckon.
And when they hand you a prescription for something and they're like, give this a go before we look at anything else, you kind of like, Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, yeah. And you kind of, or when they start interjecting when you're only halfway through your story, you're kind of like, oh, yep, of course. And then you walk out so disappointed because you feel like you've robbed yourself of actually saying, hey, no, I said I had pain, but I didn't actually tell you that on my bad days, it's a 9 out of 10 and I want to take myself to hospital, or like they missed that part because you're like, oh, yeah, cool. And you come out with a piece of paper instead.
I know the amount of times I do that. I'm like you literally, when you walk out of that office, you're like, what just happened? I went in there with this intention and I've still walked out without the thing I went in for.
And you feel like you just paid $180 to A, rip yourself off.
Yeah.
B, realize that you are still the people pleaser that you thought you were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
C, now you just have a piece of paper for a script to which I don't even remember what he was telling me what it was about because I was too busy being self-critical to myself for being a people pleaser. And I wasn't actually listening to what he said.
Yeah.
And you're just nodding your head saying, yep, even though in the back of your mind you're like, why did I not keep talking, or like speak up, like it's say something now. And then that you just walk out and you're like, what just happened? Like,
it's like we need an advocate with us.
Yes.
Like, the whole time.
I actually like the one with Russell. I went and saw Russell as well. I took Tess's mom. Yeah, my aunt with me.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, she was amazing.
Oh, that's so good.
Because she has Tess's background on top of mine. She's like, this is what she feels. And this is really bad. Like my Tessie felt it as well. And Tess had stage 4. So like we can kind of, and I was like, yes, everyone needs a fairy godmother.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I think Tess's mum even came in on a consult with either Tess or a sister.
Yeah, Georgia. Yeah. Shout out Megan. I'm just literally listing my family tree right here.
Yeah, she was awesome. Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, I think this is actually a really solid piece of advice to people. If you feel like you're not very strong with speaking up, which is very common, it's not your fault. It's because of the decades of being made to feel small as a woman without a voice in the healthcare system. Yep. It's just what we got used to doing.
Yeah. And like back to what I said before about how in school or even in our home environments as a teen, we kind of hide our symptoms because otherwise we'd be labeled a drama queen. So you're going in there trying to kind of do the almost opposite of what you've always told yourself and kind of be as vulnerable as you can. List everything to your full extent. And then you're in there and you're kind of panicking because you've only got 15, 20 minutes to tell 10 years worth of pain. And another thing as well is like she held my hand the whole time.
Oh, I love
and
that.
I didn't think I needed that. Like she put her hand out and I took it, and that was just so grounding because she would just like rub my hand every now and then. And I was like, okay, come back. So that's another tip for you guys is
love that.
take someone, if they say hold my hand, trust them. You do need that. And you don't think you do until you get into that. And it's a lot more psychological than it is actually like at the kind of biological in those moments. Like you have to kind of really recount everything and stay strong.
Yeah, you really do. Like I think this not only does it give advice for like, you know, have someone with you as kind of your advocate and support person, but also maybe writing a list of the key things that you want to cover off before you go in. And it's even like with my own patients, I would always tell them in between the time and now between your next consult, like keep a list of all the things that you've thought, oh, I want to ask Jade that.
Yeah.
Then you'll get in the consult and you'll be like, I can't remember anything that I'm here for.
Literally. And I actually remember that with our appointments. Like there was one I sat in there and I was like, I don't know what to tell her. Like I've seen improvements, but I don't know where. And then like you were really great. You kind of like ask a bit about this, a bit about that. And then I'd get talking and I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember now.
Yeah. You get good at, as a practitioner, you get good at like knowing how to probe the information.
Yeah.
Sometimes you would get some that were really tricky. I'm like, you know, we've got half an hour here and we're only 2 minutes in. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pull any more information out of this person. And there were times when I actually would cut it and be like, well, you know what? It seems like there's not too much to talk about today. So let's just cut it as a 15-minute consult, you know, like rather than like waste someone's time and money.
Yeah, you save that cash dollar.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. You know, bit of a sidetrack note. Obviously, we were talking about earlier how
we love the sidetracks and the side quests.
How I'm no longer consulting and I don't even have my practitioners anymore because, you know, I did have an online clinic dedicated to endometriosis, but for multiple reasons, I decided personally to stop consulting because I just couldn't commit that time anymore. Being a single mom of twin toddlers, just so much work. And even the neurodivergent brain in itself was getting in the way of it too. Just overthinking it. I didn't have very good boundaries with patients, like giving them a lot of my free time outside of consult, which would burn me out, but I didn't know how to not be like that, you know?
Yep. Especially when you're your own boss, like you don't have someone looking over you and saying, hey, let's pull back a bit. Like you need to take some time off. You're the person who have to judge yourself and make that based on how you feel.
That's it. And then even like as a quote unquote boss, which I never felt like a boss, but like to my practitioners, I was always so supportive of whatever they needed to do and like changes throughout the week and stuff. But again, probably to my detriment a little bit there too as well.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I was just so burnt out. But to come back to the money factor, this is even just another thing to add to it. Times are so tough right now for so many people.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And I literally had people that say to me, you know, like they would find a way to afford my services because they knew that they needed it so much, but sacrificing other things.
Yeah.
And that made me feel shit, like honestly.
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty, like even though I also value my work and I knew that I was worth what I was charging, and also people don't understand that like we're not covered by Medicare, like we don't have any, you know, breaks.
You don't get rebated or.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. So like, and we don't necessarily work like 40 hours a week either, because that would burn us right out. So we can only work X amount of hours a week in consulting. And so the more experience you get, because you spend thousands of dollars a year on upskilling, and my fee help debt is $80,000, you know. So like we need to charge a decent amount. So these people out there, they're like, oh, they're just so expensive. They just want you. I'm
also,
like,
you need a wage too.
Like, you need a wage, right? I need to afford to live and all those things.
Yeah.
But I was still just feeling so conflicted. I'm like, there must be a better way that like I can make my services more accessible whilst, you know, and so that people can still afford it, but good quality services, you know.
And then came along the Endo Care Collective.
Yeah. And then came along that. And then this is also why I just give away so much free information on Instagram and podcasts and things, because it helps me to feel like at least I can give to those people that can't afford it yet, you know? Yeah. Anyway, sidetrack.
No,
you just reminded me.
That's so valid. And like as someone who has to take so much time off work and like ironically endo month was March and I was sick for majority of March with a combination of endo and just viruses from childcare. But endo just, and also adeno as well, makes your immune system so weak. So you're already more susceptible to catching things than other people. So you're taking more time off work. Plus, if you're taking time off work during the peak, then it's just such a financial burden. And most of my friends who I have referred to you are students and they're so grateful because they're like, wow, her page just has so much information. And you're such a big resource for not only myself, but so many other people who don't know where to start. I'm like, here, start here.
Aww.
It's user-friendly. It's literally an Instagram page.
I feel like it sounds almost like I've paid you to be here, which I haven't.
No. But like this is like
so
personal
nice
experience, and like I wouldn't be here if I didn't trust and value everything that you said. And I also value outside of the practitioner world as well. And just like you're just a beautiful, kind-hearted person, and also we got the TISM, so that binds us.
Bloody oath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already know what each other's going to say.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like, it's such a good thing to share with other people who I know are much like myself and studying, or times are very tough right now for everyone. And I can be like, hey, I can't make things cheaper, but I can send you this information that's helped me. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's often it is the knowledge is power part. Like the bet that if there's one thing I can do to help people is to get in the hands of the right specialist the first time. That's probably,
that's big.
That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
In fact,
saves hundreds,
literally,
if not thousands.
Yep.
Like
and saves you another procedure.
Yeah,
you know.
I was literally about to say I've had friends who have had like their endo cut out. I forget. I've had excision. I forget what
ablation.
Ablation. Yeah. I've abolished that word from my mind.
Yeah.
We don't like to talk about ablation.
It's like Voldemort. He shall not be named.
Yeah. Oh, we love the term Voldemort.
Yeah.
But Yeah, and so they've had surgery after surgery and just feel like they're not making any progress. And you kind of look at that, and none of that is able to be really claimed on Medicare, and that's all just kind of adding up onto this massive bill. And then they meet people like you and think, oh gosh, this could have been so much easier.
Yeah, and because I went through that, like myself, having had a laparoscopy when I was 21 with no abnormality detected, you know, oh yeah, great. But it's like, okay, I'm still in so much pain.
Yeah.
And yeah, ultrasound after ultrasound, that's like
Yes.
everything's normal.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've got your like sonographer there being like, oh, you have to wait till you pay your gyno, and that's $180 just to see your gyno.
Yeah.
And then maybe you may get 30 back depending if you have private health insurance or
Yeah.
or even if you have what level of cover you have in your private health sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't have private, like I've always been through public, and I'm so grateful that we have someone like Russell Dalton who is still doing public endo procedures. It's $400 out of pocket, which is actually not that much compared to the gap fee some people pay with private, even with endo. Like,
I think mine was around 7,000 roughly.
The gap?
No, like the whole
up front.
Yeah, and then that's not including like hospital anaesthetist.
Yes, exactly
which
right.
is like you kind of prepare for that 7,000 and you're like, okay, cool. And then whilst you're in your recovery and you're there and you're kind of processing everything, them saying stage 4, whatever, you get this bill for the hospital, then you get the bill for the anaesthetist. Well, I can't say that word properly. And then, yeah, you're just trying to fight bills on top of that. And it just keeps coming.
That's insane. I mean, I've heard this story before, but it still shocks me every time that people, the barrier to actually getting the care you need can often just be money, right?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have been able to do it without my parents. Shout out to them. But yeah, it's for people who are not as fortunate to have people saying, yeah, like whatever difference you can't pay, like we'll help out, or who don't have family or who are quite isolated, or especially during COVID, and everyone was doing it tough, especially now they can't really lean on people. And yeah, I'm one of the fortunate ones, even though our stories are so long and deep with pain, it's still, that's fortunate.
This is something I reflect on a lot. We often tell ourselves we're the fortunate ones. Oh, my case wasn't as bad as that, and it's like, this is still hectic. Like,
yeah, I know. I've lost 10 years of productivity of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know then. So when you had the laparoscopy and you woke up, what did they first tell you?
So woke up, Simon came in quite early in the morning, and Mum and my partner were there at the time, and he said, we found a quite severe amount of endo. You have stage 4. The surgery did take longer than we expected because of that, and it is definitely confirmed adeno, but we can't remove adeno, but we're confident we removed everything of endo. And whilst you're there kind of still a bit daisy and high on drugs, you're like, whoa, this is a lot to take in. And then it's very emotional. I just started crying, more so because like I felt so validated, and I was like, sorry for this, grandma, but I was like, holy shit, like this is real. This is like, it's not in my head. And it was so nice to actually, this is also another piece of advice I'd have for anyone who's going through this, is have other people in the room, if you can, with you while someone tells you, because you don't really realize how much you need somebody else to hear it. Or not that they never like said that I didn't have it, but just having other people to be like, hold your hand or be with you whilst you process that, because that's 10 years of being harsh on yourself. That's 10 years of people pleasing. That's 10 years of pain, missing school, missing uni, missing social events, not performing well in everything. And all just summarized up into a couple of words.
And not only that, one, you may not even remember everything that I tell you.
Oh no, I literally, I remember saying to him, can you please write this down?
Yeah.
And then he wrote in his doctor's writing
you can't even understand.
Yeah, and they actually take, if you don't know as well, they take photos of everything whilst they're in there, and he was pointing with his pen, like, here's the endo, here's what we had to cut out. And also like my left ovary was fused to my bowel. with endo. So, and also another thing that they told me then was you were actually infertile, and we probably still will be for a little bit until that heals. So that's another thing, like processing that, being like, oh my gosh, like, but yeah, he's pointing to all these things and you're there trying to process. So thankfully other people are there in the room and can remember that stuff for you, which is why I recommend try and get someone, even if they can't take the whole day off, just to be there. Usually they'll come in the morning before they go to another surgery. And then, so.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like you said, having that validation, like having someone else there listening to it helps you just feel even more validated, because also when you get out of the hospital, you don't want to have to keep relaying that same thing over and over.
No.
It's a good thing that there's someone else, particularly if it's a family member or someone close to you, that can be that advocate for you and be like, this is what it was, like this is what she had, like, you know, because that's exhausting explaining it over and over again as well.
100%.
And also having people that may still doubt it, like, you know, which is just awful. Obviously, those people don't really deserve to be in your life, to be honest. But like,
I mean, we phase them out.
Yeah, we do. We phase them out in the end. We cut them out just like endo.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned that one of your ovaries was stuck to your bowels, and where else was the endo found?
Pouch of Douglas.
Yeah.
It was found on obviously like around my uterus, on my bowel, a bit higher up, just above my uterus. And then it was also found quite heavily around my bladder as well. And then there was a few other places, but I don't remember the actual medical terms of them. But Pouch of Douglas is quite easy to remember because I was like, what is that?
Yeah, everyone. It's a very common area actually. Yeah, and that's very extensive. No wonder it was stage 4.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, probably stage 1, 2, maybe. You know, be minimal. I'll be fine.
So did you have any bowel problems as well?
Yeah, always in pain before and after.
Your period?
No, just like going and using my bowels.
Yeah.
And always just kind of felt like someone had a blade inside my bowel, and I just felt, and I kept this very hidden as well. Every time I sat down, like in this seated position, it just felt like someone was pushing a blade up, and it was just that, like your hips bending at that point, and it just kind of felt like everything was compressing a little bit. But I don't have that anymore, which is amazing. But it's kind of like, wow, this is what life is like without that. Like,
that's amazing. Yeah. And even so, obviously surgery did provide some relief. How is it now with pain and discomfort?
Yeah, the endo side was definitely relieved, but I suppose this is where the adeno comes in, because you can't really get rid of adeno unless you have a hysterectomy, and she's still in there.
She's still in there.
Yeah.
Adeno is a she, everyone.
Yeah, baby girl, if you could just calm down, just take a holiday, it would be nice. Yeah, I don't have, they inserted the IUD whilst I was under, or they gave me a fresh one.
Yeah. So the Marina for everyone.
I have the Kylina, which is a smaller version, but they kind of said this is better suited to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, still like I'll be driving sometimes and the pain kind of comes through, and it's just like that stabbing pain almost through, like as if someone was piercing my uterus, kind of almost that pain of when you first get the IUD put in. And yeah, you just be driving or you'll be making food, and it's enough to kind of like, you know the pain where it tips you forward and you're like, but then you breathe through it and you kind of like, but then sometimes you can just keep going and you just keep driving and you're like, oh, what was that? And then other times you're like, okay, I need to sit in bed for the rest of the day. Still have lots of discomfort around swelling and bloating, and I have a lot of discomfort around just always being on guard, like my muscles in that area. So bless them, they're trying to protect me, but you can put your shields down, like it's fine. But yeah, just always so tight, and like I'll be just doing a yoga flow and they're like, okay, just breathe. And then I'll realize how like that's just not wanting to let go. It's just kind of like, we must keep this wrapped up.
You see a pelvic physio or pelvic osteo?
I was, but with the kind of cost of living at the moment, I've had to be like, okay, what's something I could probably
cut away.
still keep going with like medications and that sort of stuff, but what are some other things I could probably just keep trying to do it myself?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like with pelvic physio quite often it's obviously there is the in-house things that they can do, but a lot of it is giving you the exercises to do at home,
giving them
and
tools to
techniques and
do it yourself, which is like a sign of a good physio. The physio
Absolutely.
says, hey, this is what you can do. If this arises again, do X, Y, and Z.
Did you find it helped?
Oh, incredible. Like, so up until I was seeing my pelvic physio, I was still having a lot of discomfort whilst having intercourse with either like coming from myself or with somebody else, regardless of what I did. And yeah, seeing a pelvic physio was just amazing for just allowing myself to kind of relax and not feel like I need to be constantly on guard of all those organs and protecting them. And like my bladder is just, unfortunately, I have a lot of scar tissue around my bladder, so it just constantly feels like I need to go to the toilet all the time, and it doesn't expand to the rate of other people.
Wow.
And so I always seems like, especially at workplaces, I find this really hard. It always seems like I really need to pee all the time, or like, and it's frustrating. Like I brush my teeth, get into bed, I'm like, okay, good night, and then 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I just want to go to sleep. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, and so like even if I have to hold on, or like say if I'm in an airplane or like I'm in the window seat, I literally feel like I'm about to pass out.
Oh my God.
Like my mum and I went on a trip recently, and like I just said to her, I was like, I actually can't do this. Like I feel like I'm going to faint from this pain. But that's just kind of, that hasn't really gone away with everything. Unfortunately, that's still been continuing.
And was that bladder pain specifically, or just the adeno pain as well?
A bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I get that bladder pain, and then that pushes on your uterus, and then you've already got that swelling and that discomfort and that sharp pain, and it's literally just kind of feeding off each other. And you've got this organ that's kind of like saying, hey, I'm at my limit, alert, alert, alert. And then you've got this other one that's like, I'm already being put in an uncomfortable position because we're seated. And we need to get up and move and release this pressure that's being put on us. And then it's just, yeah. I don't know how to describe it. It's really hard to describe your endo pain, like and adeno pain as well, because adeno's a deeper level. Like I feel the difference between endo and adeno pain as well. Like adeno feels like if I could have 2 points come from the side and just meet directly in the middle of my pelvis. Like that's, whereas like endo, I can kind of feel wider and higher up.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
That's a really good point to make, that you can actually discern the difference between them, because I'm sure there'd be some people listening to this that may be wondering whether they may have adeno as well, but not sure.
And I also learned to tell the difference after my surgery, because I knew that whatever pain I was still kind of having was either from my scar tissue and just with learning to get back to normal and those organs kind of healing, or it was like that pain that I still felt before, like prior to the surgery, like that sharp knife pain. I was like, oh, okay, I know exactly what that is now because it hasn't gone away.
Yeah. And I've heard for some people with adeno that when they are menstruating, it feels like a burning pain. Did you ever get that?
Yes. Yeah. 100%. And also like using your bowels and bladder.
Oh, it's burning. Painful every time. Yeah, wow. And have you found that sex is still painful, or is it a bit more manageable now?
Recently it's actually been quite manageable. I was quite lucky with, I haven't really experienced it probably up until like just recently, but that's when I knew that I already had such a hectic week with pain going into that, and I kind of was like, okay, like I probably should just rest and like take a break from this, which is also like, I guess like it's something we should speak about, being single as well. And it's not something, I think that's actually probably one of the hardest things with adeno, is that navigating your single life without someone who knows that you have endo or adeno is so hard to manage. Because like when coming from being in a relationship where the other person was in the room whilst you got the diagnosis, or they're aware and you can take it a different pace or say, hey, it's not a reflection on you. It's just not right now. But yeah, being single and navigating that, you kind of have to kind of be really strong with your boundaries and know, is this going to cause me more pain? Do I need to rest now? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you're not really going to whip out an O-nut on your first date, like a spacer or something.
Yeah, literally be like, hey babe, what's going on?
Do you mind putting this ring on your cock for me? That'd be great.
Yeah. Or do you mind just giving me like a pelvic massage?
Yeah. Did you ever try the spacers?
No, I have the wands because that's what my pelvic physio directed me to use.
Yeah, how did you find that?
Yeah, at the start, initially it's very confronting because it's not something that we're taught to, I guess, like female intimacy is a kind of still a taboo topic, let alone essentially doing like intimacy to relieve pain is kind of like, well, you're doing actions that are very similar to intimacy. So it feels very foreign because you're like, oh, I'm actually doing like pelvic exercises right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you kind of get the hang of it, you feel so empowered because you're like, I can relieve this and I can do this myself. And that's also, a good sign of a good physio because they go through that and give you the skills to do that yourself. But being consistent with it is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And especially the learning that there's certain, like with all muscle groups, there's certain points, like there's certain trigger points that you kind of have to put pressure on or apply pressure. And doing that yourself can be a bit hard, especially if you are experiencing high amounts of pain. It's like you never want to put pressure on a sore muscle yourself. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
But it's better for you long term.
Yeah.
So being consistent with that is also quite challenging.
Yeah. And especially even as our ADHDers, we struggle to be consistent with anything.
Yeah, and you have to put it in your diary. Be like, hey, time to go.
Where's my diary again?
Yeah, time to go be intimate with yourself for the purpose of health.
Yeah, that's it. And just for listeners, in case they're wondering what I was talking about with the O-nut or the spacers, they're like, if you imagine this like silicone ring and you can stack them up like to be thicker and thicker, but it basically puts a barrier between the penis entering the vagina so that it doesn't go in as deep, but the penis owner still experiences the penetration of the full penis, right?
It's quite full on to
like grasp. I can't imagine doing that, to be honest with you. Like,
no, it wasn't really, I was like, okay, I'll start with the wands and we'll see how we go.
You'd have to be in a really good relationship to even do that as well, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by like
really open communication and them wanting to be proactive about your pain management too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel, I used to experience bad pain with sex for many, many years. And I just remember with my ex, like often bracing myself, like I'd literally be putting the palms of my hands down.
Yeah.
And just like,
and you tense up.
Yeah. And which makes it worse.
Yeah. You literally like your organs know that something is about to, like they're kind of like preparing for it. And I used to try and almost do like all these mindfulness exercises and also do them whilst being intimate, kind of being like, okay, relax. This is a pleasant, enjoyable experience. It should be. Let's just take a breath or like, and then I used to be in pain for at least a day or two after. Yeah. Just like this, just agony. And it kind of gets to a point where then you're like no longer wanting to be intimate because your body, not that you want to be, but your body purposely withdraws yourself from those settings. And it's very hard to navigate that in a relationship too.
Absolutely.
Because it's not, hey, it's not you, it's actually me. And I'm not saying that too.
I'm not just saying that. Yeah. Yeah. I often think about, because, I don't get the painful sex anymore, but I often think about people who are single and experience debilitating painful sex. It must be really hard to navigate because, we want a sex life. We deserve to have a sex life. Yeah. But there are a lot of things that get in that way.
Yeah. And like I've been very fortunate to have met people who are so open and communicative and really emotionally intelligent and aware, and they've asked me like, hey, can you tell me more about endo? I'm like, oh babe, this is the biggest green flag.
I'm actually wet now, thank you.
Yeah, like this is foreplay for me.
Yeah, a guy that is like, well, not just guys, obviously all genders, anyone who is just has that emotional maturity. Yes. Yeah. To be
it
inquisitive.
Means so much. And then them being like, oh, like, is this going to interfere? Like, what pace? And then kind of like I had this experience quite recently where felt pain during, and they actually paused and then did breathing exercises with me.
Stop it.
And they were like,
beautiful.
just breathe with me. And so we were like breathing in sync, and I was like, oh, like what do I do here? Like,
because you're so shocked by
yeah, literally. I told
That's
I went and
beautiful.
told all my girlfriends, and I was like, girls, this is the new standard.
This is the standard.
Breathing,
Yeah.
literally putting everything aside and saying,
Yeah.
hey, let's do some breathing exercises before
Yeah.
we like continue. I'm like,
absolutely. And this is something I want to highlight is there
sorry,
actually...
Mum, if you're listening to this.
There are lovers out there like this.
Oh yeah, 100%.
100%.
You have to sift
Yeah.
through some, but
Yeah.
once you find them, you're like, wow, this is actually,
Yeah.
this is the bare minimum.
Yeah. I think especially a real good green flag to me is like someone who's even aware of Tantra. Often people that are in tune with tantric sex are very, because even then, like that can be really good for people who experience a lot of pain with penetration, because tantric sex, you know, doesn't
Do you mind
always
giving
have to
a definition for our friends?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on Tantra, but Tantra isn't just sex, but a lot of people do associate Tantra with sex. And tantric sex is more about the journey rather than the end result. And it's very, when I say, for example, if I've been with someone and I'll say to my friends it was very tantric, which means that, you know, the chemistry was incredible. We were so in tune with each other's energy. We were edging the whole time, meaning you're like, you know, you want to come, but you want to keep prolonging as well. And
actually just like that connection.
It's the connection and your body's moving and you're using movement, sound and breath all together. So it's like that and moving your hips and like breathing.
Girl.
Sorry if I turned everyone on. I'll have to put a warning at the start. This may induce some
we'll hear sex sounds.
That's it. And it's very much about the build up. It's not necessarily about the, you know, like rabbits to get to and like it's explosion, which sometimes you do want that too. Like, you know, sometimes you're just like, fuck, I just want to get it done. You know, you might be ovulating, so your sex drive is super high and you're just like,
it's primal.
Let's go. Yeah. But yeah, when you're really in tune with that tantric energy, you're really just staying connected. And you can even have like almost like a full body orgasm experience without actual clitoral or vaginal stimulation.
It's quite spiritual.
Yeah, it is a spiritual experience.
I feel like
truly.
you kind of go off into like you kind of just feel like it's just you and that other person.
Yes.
And you're just kind of floating almost.
Yeah.
And it just like nothing else is feeding into it. And that's also the best for people who have endo and I don't know, because you can just be so present. Yeah. And your body just relaxes and becomes so vulnerable. And you can just focus on what do I feel in this moment. And so
this is actually
I
really
recommend.
Yeah. And this is actually
girls
highlighting another piece of advice maybe for people who experience painful penetrative sex. Maybe an area to explore with your partner could be looking into Tantra more.
Yeah.
How can you get more connected? Yeah, energetically.
And that also comes from like sitting down with your partner and saying, what do you need to feel satisfied? And this is what I need to feel satisfied. How can we bring those together and meet in the middle instead kind of just being like, well, it must have been good sex because we both came. And it's like, no, that doesn't.
Yeah. Exactly. 100%. Because sometimes just to come feels robotic and planned and like, can you finish me now?
Yeah,
you know?
And 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know like in my past relationship, it was very much like that. And we actually did go see we had a private tantric session with this amazing tantra lady. Yeah. Nice. To try and save our sex life because it was terrible.
Yeah.
But like, I wasn't feeling heard, seen, respected with my needs, you know.
And also that emotional presence, I think, is like the biggest thing when it comes to being truly intimate with someone.
Yeah. Like now that I've had sexual partners, it's been the most healing thing for myself.
I feel like we need to do like a
bloody I know. I'm like, sorry guys, this is.
I feel like we could make a podcast, a second podcast about like all the offcuts and like
totally.
tangents. We need to write this down and like.
Well, Maybe you can be. So my friend Chelsea and I are actually planning to create a podcast about sex. So maybe you can come on and talk
Let's
to
talk
us
about
about
sex,
this.
baby.
Yeah, we actually might start recording in a couple of weeks. I'm excited about it because she was an escort for like 15 years.
Oh,
yeah,
get it, girl.
Yeah, so she's the one that does like the Kundalini body work and breath
Oh,
work.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I did a
queen amongst queens.
Yeah. Oh, she literally is a queen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, we're definitely going on a tangent here, aren't we? But anyway, bringing back to the point though, like, you know, because like sex is still a really important part of a lot of people's lives, and it's a way that you and your partner feel connected, or if you're a single person, you feel liberated. And so you should be able to experience good sexual experiences, whether it is penetrative or not. And this should give people some really good tangible information to go away with and consider that actually maybe I can reinvigorate my sex life, and it doesn't necessarily have to be penis in vagina or, you know, dildo in vagina sex or whatever it is. Yeah.
And I think with adeno, because it can't be removed, you kind of just have to, it's really rough, but you kind of just have to look at it being like, okay, I'm going to have to work with it. What resources can I equip myself with and my partner? What can he learn about this situation, or what can my future partners learn about this situation? What information can I equip myself with? So when I do meet someone, I can tell them exactly what I need, what they need to do, and where I need to be at to feel satisfied. And that also comes with like delving deep in going and experiencing that yourself, trial and error with yourself, which is something that is not associated with adeno. You don't think adeno and like self-exploration and intimacy are linked. But when you've got a condition that can't be cured, you just got to kind of work with it and just understand yourself as much and organically as possible.
And the more that you get clear on what you will want in a future partner who really understands this, this is going to be our woo-woo side coming out, but you're probably going to manifest that. You know?
Yeah, 100%.
You've now got clear on the kind of person you want. You want them to understand these things about you. And you will probably find that person.
No, I fully back that. My most recent intimate partner was the most eye-opening and incredible experience, and I actually thanked him for it. I was like, wherever this leads, I just have to thank you, because I have never had so much emotional security and safety and reciprocating that and open and healthy, transparent communication that isn't, I'm not already asking for it, it's just there.
That is so beautiful. Will he come on the podcast?
No, I feel like he definitely needs to make his own podcast. He's very, very proactive about all areas of health, and he works in the health industry himself.
That's good. And that says a lot, like that you can tell sometimes if they work in the health industry.
100%. Yeah, and that's also probably stemmed from his interest in health. And,
So one of the last topics I want to touch on is the big H word, hysterectomy.
Yeah.
Obviously that's come up for you before.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel, and what are all the thoughts that go through your brain about this?
Oh, it's terrifying. It's really hard. And I actually gave a friend a really good analogy of it recently. And I said it's so extreme and disappointing. Well, it's so disappointing that we have a measure so extreme thrown around so casually for us. And I kind of use the analogy of, if someone has shin splints and the doctor said the only option to heal that was just to cut off the leg, because we can't really like go in and like surgically fix shin splints or like whatever. But it's like, hey, saying you have something wrong with you and the only option is to literally just cut it out, even though that's literally what you are primarily designed to have in you to reproduce. And like, it's like the one organ in me that kind of identifies my sex or like is failing. It's quite hard. And I don't know really how to explain it. Right now it's not an option for me. I know that I would like to have children, and as soon as I am done having those children, then I'll revisit it. But it's really quite confronting when you first start your journey and you go into health professionals and they give you a script for the pill, kind of minor like topics, and then they just chuck in hysterectomy in there. And they're like, another option is hysterectomy, and you're like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
And even the fact that anyone in their 20s is being offered that option is huge.
Yeah. And it's, I've been so many different people in my 20s and I'm not even finished in my 20s yet. If I made a decision in my early 20s to have a hysterectomy, what's to say when I get to 25, 28 that I won't want the same that I wanted back then?
Yeah.
Like, it's such a, and
that's really hard.
The Below the Belt documentary featured a few girls getting hysterectomies, and that was so heartbreaking that they felt that was their only option and that their pain was so severe. And like, don't get me wrong, there's days where my pain is so severe that I'm like, what quality of life will I be living? Like, is it really worth me kind of living this way? And it kind of does dig a bit deeper, but I don't think that should be given as a solution immediately or straight up when you're first going in for a consult. And I think that's where health professionals are actually failing us and saying, well, sorry, but these are your only options in your first consult with them.
Yeah.
Like and then you kind of walk away from that, A, being a people pleaser, B, with this script that you have no idea because you blacked out, and C, knowing that you're probably just going to have to get it chopped out, and this dream of you having the picket fence with the kids, it's like, bye Felicia, out of there. But yeah,
it is. And like, I want to also really highlight some differences here between a hysterectomy offered for endo versus adeno. So like, some people are offered a hysterectomy for endo, but quite often like that is just, it's not going to cure the endo.
No, yeah.
But with adeno, technically speaking, yes, it will, because the adeno is only within the uterus. So like, of course, if you remove it, yes, technically you've cured it. But yeah, for people who still want to conceive, then that's completely taken away from them. Yeah, and there's so many other factors involved there. And of course, we also acknowledge that there are those people that do get to the stage where that's what they decide to do.
Oh yeah, 100%. Each their own decision.
Yeah.
And my heart breaks for people who are in so much pain that is what they see as the best solution for them. And if that's what they feel, I back you. I support you, babe.
Absolutely. It's all about informed choice, right?
Yeah, you've got to do what you think is right in your body. But I saw it, it was actually on my Instagram 2 days ago, leading up to April, and it was this post about adeno, and they said, it was basically, what is adeno? The next slide is cures, and it just said hysterectomy. And I was like, if you are exploring that for the first time, that's so severe to kind of come across.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, like if someone's like, hey, Patti, like, where do I start searching? And you start searching that on Instagram. And it's cool. We've got definition of adeno. They've got that right, unlike most places with endo. If you know, you know. And then the second slide is just complete removal. Like, it's that would be without people to support you with that.
I would cry, I think.
Yeah.
It reminds me of when I was about 20 and I was first considering that I may have endometriosis. And so, of course, I Googled, got on Wiki, and it says may not be able to have children. Like, that's the first thing that stands out to you, right?
Yeah.
And I remember bawling my eyes out. I did. I was just like, oh my God.
I think that's also such a common thing, and the thing that's not spoken about enough is that we have to kind of come to terms with that. And growing up, always kind of having that maternal instinct, whether you do or you don't, it's kind of something that you kind of like to think is going to be a possibility one day, and then your body is the only thing that's really stopping you. And I guess like most people that I'm friends with, and myself included, have kind of come to the terms with that maybe I may not be able to have children one day. And I'm actually so content with adopting. I know that I at least want to adopt one child, regardless of if I can have my own. But that's also something that I've kind of been like, okay, I may not be able to have them biologically, be my children, but I can still have children and be
a mother.
Yeah, and fulfill those maternal
100%
desires and needs. So there are ways around it, but nothing really resolves the confronting feeling of seeing hysterectomy.
Absolutely. I saw there's this American, I've started following a few endo surgeons in America lately because they actually have some really leading surgeons in America. And one of them, I'll have to find his name and put him in the show notes. I can't remember at this stage, but he did a little video talking about, you know, how hard it is obviously when he has to tell people that they can't have children because things are so extensive. But one thing he always tells them is you can still have what's the word that he used? You can still express being a mother in so many other ways in your life. You are still a mother in your heart. Like as a female or an AFAB, it's the hormones, it's that drive, it's that actually make us maternal, right? And he said whether that is adopting or having a pet or mothering other people around you or, you know, helping family out with their children and being that incredible auntie or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and even though it never takes away from like if someone's true desire was to always conceive that biological child, it
and
never takes away from
you
that.
grow up seeing people pregnant or like, and you're
Yeah.
like, wow,
Yeah.
that'd be so, like the young child think that'd be so cool one day I can be a mum. And like the first things that we're taught in preschool, kinder, especially with your girls, is like you get given babies
Yeah.
from infancy to play with, nurture.
Yes.
And you start developing that kind of like, oh, I can't wait till I'm older and have that baby.
And I remember the feeling, you know, when we went conceiving and then, you know, had to eventually go through IVF. And I know what it feels like to think I might not be able to get this. And there was so many tears, so much heartbreak. And I remember the resentment I would feel towards another friend who would feel pregnant.
Yeah.
Even though I would still love them, but the pain was so deep. There's nothing that can just make you ignore that feeling that like, why does everyone else around me still keep falling pregnant but not me?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And then even though I had to go through IVF, I then felt guilty that it was quote unquote easy for me to only have to do one round of IVF, you know? Like, so you always see that there's someone worse off than you or someone better off than you.
Yeah. And this whole journey is like invalidating to some degree, whether you are invalidating your own experiences or other people are invalidating them for you. And I think that's one thing that I always try and stress to my friends who are starting their journey is they say, well, like, oh, even coworkers, and they ask me like, hey, Patti, how did you notice this? And I'll tell them the symptoms I have. And then they're like, oh, mine's not that bad. I'm like, yeah, but babe, don't invalidate yourself because there's people who are stage 4 who have no symptoms. Or people who have adeno but have really quite minor endo. And so it's like they're going in and they're cutting all this endo out, but the adeno is the biggest problem. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, my endo wasn't that bad. And it's like, yeah, but you've got this little thing in the corner saying, hey, I'm still here and I was the biggest problem. Yeah. So I think, and another thing I'd probably urge people who, if you are listening and you are a loved one or a friend, family member of someone who does have adeno or endo, is tread lightly with the word hysterectomy. Like I've had, say after my surgery and obviously my adeno wasn't resolved and I was still struggling, people would say, oh, but you've had your surgery. Like, shouldn't you be better? Or I'd go back to work and I'd have to take another day off work. And they're like, but you just had your surgery. I thought you'd be better. And it's like, but that's where adeno comes into it, being like, hey, I actually have this other part of this condition that is incurable. And then they kind of will loosely say, based on what they've seen on social media or based on what they've heard from other people, being like, oh, well, you could get a hysterectomy. And it's that coming from other people that are close to you, and they don't mean it in an offensive or hurtful way. They're kind of providing a solution. They're trying to support you. But it's like I've already done so much work psychologically to put that out of my mind and just accept this and work with adeno and be proactive and take steps to do that. Yeah. And then you've got your loved one saying, well, like, I don't know why you don't just get a hysterectomy if it's that bad. And it's, or like I had an ex-partner, most recent one, say, if we can't have sex, then what's the point of us being together? Like it's like you got to tread, we already think this ourselves. Like we already struggle with these topics. We already struggle with the big H. We already struggle with feeling like we're an imposter when we say we have pain and sharing our voice and using our voice. Even like me in this podcast, like there's times where I'm trying to talk about something. And I'm like, oh shit, how far how far into this information do I provide? Like, and knowing that this is a safe space and I could talk about everything as much as I wanted to. And that's the beauty in this. I have been able to. But it just feels so foreign. And when you've got people close to you that back up those not helpful solutions or say unhelpful things that really confirm those bad thoughts that you have, it's not helpful. It's kind of better off for you just saying, okay, what can I actually do for you? Instead of providing a solution that you've seen on social media, just ask them, what do you need from me? What do you need from me as a support? What could I do to make your day easier? Or what's something I can plan for you in the future? And that's the best way. If you don't have any actual advice that's evidence-based and scientifically proven,
that is a good point.
Please refrain. And then we know it comes from love, and that's why we don't bite back and say, like, how dare you? But
this actually highlights why us as endo sufferers are really good at supporting other people through stuff.
100%. I'm better at, like, if I'm having a rough time, I'm better at supporting other people because I can take my mind off it. And I know exactly what they need. And like asking, what do you actually need from me? Instead of being like, oh, sorry, you felt that way.
I remember in my, past marriage, it took me years just to train my husband how to ask me what I need each month when I was in pain. And we would have arguments about it because it was almost like when I was in pain or suffering, he didn't know how to deal with it that much that he would completely check out and just actually remove himself from me. And I'm like, why do you do this? Like, I actually
when you need them the most.
Yeah. And so we ended up having this huge falling out over it one time because I was like, I just need you to support me. And I was like, the smallest things, like, can I get you some water? Do you want me to warm you up a heat pack? And I remember it was a bit of a joke for a while there because he'd be like, can I get you a glass of water?
No.
Like really robotically. And I would
you
just
want it to be organic. You want them to take.
It's sad that you have to actually teach people how to do that. That's really sad. I mean, that speaks to more about someone's upbringing and what they were and weren't taught how to support women in particular.
Yeah.
But yeah, that shouldn't be our bloody job to teach someone those basics.
No. And like for a condition that potentially affects
1 in 7 now.
Yeah. And you've got people who identify as female. Like, you should have more awareness around this because there are young boys growing up with sisters and there are young girls growing up who may make that change over to be trans one day and may identify as a male but still have these problems. So it should be as much of a male topic as it is a female, and especially given that we are the sole body of reproduction. Yeah. And this is the home of reproduction. The home has to be healthy, so the home has to be reciprocated in equal care from, that's...
Yeah, and also, when
Sorry, I could talk about this for ages.
Oh, I know. I feel like, we totally could do so many podcasts, I've realised after this, it's like, since you live around the corner, you should just pop around once.
I know. I'm here to actually discuss adeno, but we've discussed everything else around adeno.
I love it though. I love it because I think so many people will relate to a lot of these things.
I feel like I haven't really given much info on adeno.
No, I really think you have. No, definitely. Okay. But I think this does speak to how, like, where adeno and endo do just get so fused into one sometimes because there are a lot of similar symptoms. And so... But I think one of the key take homes though is know that sometimes you may have been diagnosed with endo and still have adeno, but no one actually did go pick it up properly.
100%. And that's why some people still feel so much pain and they're insisting on that second surgery. And it's like, no, that's why we need good health providers.
And in fact, my friend Laura Taylor, who was working for me as a practitioner last year, and I actually studied with her and we're good friends. She just found out 2 weeks ago that she's got adenomyosis and probably endo as well. And it's actually crazy because me, Emmy, Alex and Laura, who we had my online clinic in endo, and she was more like my pediatric naturopath. And even she would say like, oh, I obviously don't have endo, so like, give all the endo patients to like you guys. And it's just so ironic that now she's like, so guys, I found out today I've got adeno and probably endo.
Yeah.
And we were just like, shocked. Like, what? And the reason why I know I can confidently talk about this, because one, she's talked about it on her socials, and two, she's actually going to come on the podcast in a couple of weeks and talk about this anyway. So this is a little taste tester.
Yeah.
And so that she was just actually asking us how, you know, they've referred her to have what they called just a minor procedure to see what's going on.
It's not minor though.
Yeah. And also we were like, I said to her today, I was like, I'm so glad that you have us to help guide you through this, because I'm going to say to you, skip that, go straight to an advanced surgeon, because once they open you up, like, you don't want to have to go back again because they're like, oh no, this was just explorative today. We're not doing the whole lot. It's like you want to be in the right hands from day one.
Oh, I would not wish that surgery on my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, respect to her. It's a big journey to take on. And I think another thing on the back of that is when you are a loved one or a friend of someone who has endo and adeno, is to keep in mind that these things are heavy around the topics of like miscarriages. And another thing that is a misconception is people saying, oh, why don't you just fall pregnant? Why don't you just have a baby?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, with adeno, that like adeno is built into the walls of where that baby is going to be produced. Like it feels like a double-edged sword saying, why don't you just get pregnant to fix this problem that is going to be hard for you to conceive in the first place?
Absolutely.
And then also like miscarriages is such a heavy topic as well and doesn't get spoken about enough. And yet also another thing is if you know someone with endo and adeno, people always ask, oh, how's your endo going? And it's like, I love that you remembered that. But my endo, she's at bay for now. She's growing, but she's manageable. My adeno is the thing that causes me the most pain. I usually just answer in the one thing and just combine them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the more we start talking about adeno and having these conversations about it, and people start realizing that, oh, maybe my problem is adeno and endo is kind of the minor thing in all of this, then we can start recognizing the difference between the two and start validating people a bit more on their experience with adeno and stop putting it under the umbrella of endo.
Yeah. And I think a big problem that I realized was that adenomyosis and fibroids used to be in the category of, oh, most women just start to get that when they get to their, childbearing.
If you Google adeno, it says for people after childbearing years or pre-menopause. Nowhere does it say, I'm a 27-year-old female, fit and healthy. Yeah, but nowhere does it say anywhere. Like that's literally just the Google definition. Yeah. Like if I say to my friends, oh, just have a look, see. That's why I say go to Jade's profile because it's the most accurate. But yeah, that's why you shouldn't Google this stuff because it's just...
Even the studies are still getting it wrong.
Invalidating. Oh, endo month. The project got the definition of endo wrong.
That was an absolute
I was like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was terrible. So what are some things that you've found do help you manage your adenomyosis day to day?
First, and this is probably the hardest one, is just coming to terms with it. Seeing your mental headspace in navigating it is going to be your biggest tool. If you're constantly fighting against it and resenting the pain and wishing it wasn't there, that's going to be your biggest barrier because it's still going to be there whether or not you try and think that it's not. You kind of just have to work with it and understand it and take that time to unpack your pain. I really love the TENS machines. They're not a solution by any means, but they do just kind of decrease as much pain that's kind of being sent up to your brain as possible. I try to avoid taking a lot of pain medication because pain is your body's way of saying, hey, we're testing our limits too much, or we're not okay, we need to rest, we need to pull back. That's your body communicating to you. Obviously there's times where you do need to take it. Like I'll take it when I'm at work, but I don't always take it when I have that pain. And it's hard. I wish I could take pain medication more, but I actually just kind of sit back and just sit with my pain and kind of feel into it and be like, okay, where is this actually coming from? And I make sure I keep a record of it so I know if it's increasing, decreasing, severity and that sort of stuff. Another thing I found is hot exercise. So obviously don't do it in the peak pain period times. You want to rest your body. but I've started doing a lot of like yin yoga and hot yoga, and the heat relaxes your muscles and makes it easier to stretch out. And there's a lot of poses where we are working on like our hips and our groin, and it just really reiterates how much tension is being held in there. And you can really like dig deep, and your body's already in like a heated environment, so it's a lot easier to kind of like take a breath and just really like realize how much tension you're holding and being like, okay, I forgive you, and be kind to yourself and realize that your body's tension and your body's pain is its way of protecting you. It's not saying like you're failing or you're doing a bad job. You kind of have to just really respect it for it's trying to protect itself. So you are its biggest tool in saying, hey, it's okay. Let your guard down.
Yeah. Wow, that's such a it sounds like you've done a lot of work on yourself in acceptance.
I'm trying to.
Yeah. Always trying. Always
yeah.
trying.
Well, like it's a journey, of course,
100%.
100%. Like before you have this surgery, and I know from personal experience when I did, I'd be like, why can't you just be better? Like, can you just get your shit together, please, and just act like somebody that can do all these things? And you're pushing yourself to be someone that you're not. And so you're not going to get those results if you're constantly forcing yourself to perform in the ways that other people can. And you're making it harder on your body. And another thing I thought about recently is like with adeno, because our cycles are so irregular, and with the heavy bleeding, when I went back to my gyno, he said, well, that's not endo, that's adeno. There's not much you can do with it. And it's really hard because you don't know when your period's going to come. You ruin so many nice clothes because you don't know when it's going to come. It stays around for weeks, and then you won't see it again for another 3-4 weeks, and then you'll have it for a week, and then you'll have it for 3 or 4 weeks. So it's really irregular, and that's probably the most disheartening thing, is because you just want to have control. You want to be able to know when I can wear white, or you book on all of these exercises and activities into your social schedule, and then you have to cancel all of it, and you just feel so out of place, and that routine is threatened. And that's really hard to fight against, is us humans with especially neurodivergent people. We need consistency. We need routine. And I have a condition that's just like, oh, hell no, go.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just kind of, when that does pop up, I'm the biggest, and maybe biggest problem here is that I will be so harsh on myself when I'm resting, saying like, oh, you could be doing something whilst you're resting, but then you're not actually getting active rest. That's something that's really hard to manage, especially if you've got children, or if you live a very demanding lifestyle. If you're a nurse, if you're a paramedic, or someone that's very hands-on.
I don't know how they actually do it with chronic conditions like this.
Yeah, exactly. And you can be at work and get your flow, and you've just kind of got to be like, okay, what's going to be best for me going forward? And yeah, I don't know if that's
no, absolutely. And so do you experience pain most days, and it kind of fluctuates in severity? So right now, how does it feel?
Well, to be honest, I was in quite a lot of pain sitting here just before I went to the toilet, but that's normal for me. When I start feeling like I need to like quickly run to the toilet and that sort of stuff, it's the first thing that's at the forefront of my mind, and I have to kind of and after years and years and years of suppressing that, it's really hard to reverse that and actually listen to it. So I would say I'm in pain most days. Other days are worse than some, obviously. There's some days where I don't even have to have my period to have the worst pain. But yeah, unfortunately, I think over time you develop a strategy to kind of just push through, which we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to kind of be so good at masking to the point where people don't believe that you are in pain because you can sit there with a straight face.
Well, even I had no idea that
Yeah.
you were in pain and discomfort just then, right?
Yeah.
But I wholeheartedly believe you because I know you and I know my own experiences.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't speak to what adenomyosis is, and nothing does, the fact that you actually just sat there, you're so used to being in that pain and discomfort that you tried to push through this interview before you finally said, I do need to go to the toilet.
Yeah. Well, like the first basically 3/4 of this podcast.
Oh my God.
And I literally went to the toilet just before we filmed.
Yeah. Wow.
And within like the first 10-15 minutes, I was like, oh no. I was like, okay, let's try and push this out and see how long we can go. And I was getting to the point where I was like,
and
okay,
I said
this
we
is
could
like,
stop
I know,
anytime.
but like this is just what you're so used
You
to. And
are,
like you
it
have
is.
this like, you have two voices where there's like this
Mm.
moral kind of your beliefs and values around pain management and advocating for yourself and what you now value and know about yourself. And then you have this version of yourself that has been so conditioned day in, day out for the last, for me, over 10 years, that is just running on routine of what to do when we're in pain. So that kicks in first. And then you've got this other voice that's kind of like, hey, I know that we're on a date or we're filming a podcast, or we're in a plane where it's packed and we've got the window seat. And yes, we may feel like we're going to pass out, but like, it's actually okay if we sign that we're in pain or like ask to hold someone's hand.
Oh my gosh. I can relate with this a lot, actually. It's bringing up so many memories where I've done that to myself in the past years of just like you're sitting there, even though you look silent, in your mind, it's those two voices going on and on and on, like they're having a conversation, like just get up and go. No one's going to care. And the other person like, oh, but I don't disrupt people. I'm going to be the annoying one.
And
like,
it's that, and those voices that you are so used to telling yourself from when you are 14 and 15. And this is also like if you are a parent of someone who may have endo or adeno, my biggest advice to you is the way that you speak to your child in how they manage their pain and how they are productive whilst they're being in pain and what you encourage them to do whilst they're in pain becomes those inner voices that they speak to themselves with whilst they're in pain. So, for example, I have a father who doesn't know anything about endo or adeno. In recent years, he's had to know. But growing up, if I was homesick, he would call mum and be like, why is she homesick? And mum would have to try and explain, like, she's in a lot of pain and that to kind of leave her alone and not ask her to do stuff on the farm. Like, don't get her out riding the motorbike, just leave her be. And so, like, having that conflict of where you've got that and then you're fighting against yourself and then your loved ones are saying hysterectomy or like I have pain too or I had painful periods, like you just kind of got to get on with it. That becomes those voices that you fight against. And so be kind to everybody.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This just brought up a whole nother can of worms that I want to open in terms of how you speak to your children. And this is something that a lot of parenting pages I follow talk about is how it's not just about, say conditions like this. It's also about, in particular, women knowing how to be strong enough to use their voice to say no to things. So if they grow up with a adult figure in their life saying, I'm the adult, you listen to me, shut up, listen to me, like that's all they're going to hear. And then so eventually they're going to get into a relationship and someone's going to go to them like, do you want to have sex? Like, and they'll be like, come on, let's just have sex.
Yeah.
And then
I'm your partner.
Yeah, I'm your partner. Listen,
and so you put your pain aside.
Yeah.
And then you're already in pain whilst doing it. And in the back of your mind, you've got this alert saying, please, like, why are we going against ourselves here? But yeah, studying psychology, I'm all across this and like the fundamental years of us developing like our cognition, our internal voice is literally shaped by our environments. And it's just a product of our environment. So.
And it is so hard to strip that back later on in life.
Oh, it's a lot of work. And I think this is a bit different of a topic, but I think your 20s is literally just about hearing that voice, understanding it, respecting it, saying, yes, you are a product of your environment or whatever happened in your childhood, but this is how we're going to go forward. And I'm not disrespecting you, but I'm going to treat you with kindness and acknowledge that you're still there, but I'm healing you. And that's like your 20s. I think that, and people put so much pressure, and especially girls, if you are in your 20s and have endo or adeno, and even in your early 30s, like we put this pressure to have all this stuff figured out. And people say, well, you've had your period for the last 10 years. And like the internal voice in me says, well, like you've had your period for over 10 years. How do you not have this managed by now? How do you not understand this better? And but you figure out in your 20s that this whole condition that you've had is completely something else, and like learning and unpacking that and actually saying to your older self or your younger self, hey, you did the best that you could and it's fine, and kind of sitting with that. But yeah, sorry, that was
I love that. And you know, speaking to you, even not just now, but in other conversations, it's very clear that you're studying psychology as well.
Ask me about psych and sustainability and I will never stop talking.
I love that. And you're also quite passionate about men's mental health as well.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I suppose I signed up to do the 100Ks for men's mental health over March, where I run over the course of March a cumulative total of 100Ks. So I could do 3, 6, whatever. I started really strong and I got to 40Ks, and then I actually have to make a video about this and update people, but I had a hectic amount of pain throughout the last 3 weeks of March, and I was sick for the first 2 weeks of March, 2.5 weeks. And I felt so disappointed that I couldn't finish it. And I was like, how do I tell people that the reason why I didn't finish this challenge that people have donated money to was because I had period pain. Like, to people who don't understand the severity, that probably just sounds like, oh, she's just throwing out an excuse, like she got halfway and she couldn't finish it. And that's like also those internal thoughts that I'm fighting against, being like an imposter. And like, whilst I raise money, and my goal was, if anything comes out of this, I just want someone to have a conversation with their mate about, hey mate, how's your mental health going? Let's go out to the park, let's go for a walk or something. That was my biggest goal, regardless of if I finished the 100Ks or if I got to my goal of 2,500. But that's also feeds into endo and adeno, because we can have such great intentions of fulfilling things and completing things, and then it completely blindsides us and we don't see it coming. We can't track it. People say, oh, like, doesn't your cycle come every 28 days? And I was like, yeah, I had my period at the start of March and then I had it for the last 2 weeks of March. Like, I don't know when this is going to come, and it plays on us and makes us kind of feel like we're failures, or that we can't complete things, or wow, what would life be like if I could actually like fulfill and finish things? So yeah.
And yet it's ironic that you were raising money for men's mental health, but you were actually like, you were also going through your own mental health challenges in many different ways as well.
Yeah.
So I know fully that if you share this with people, they're going to fully appreciate the fact that also there are many other much more able-bodied people out there that could be raising the money that's not, but instead here's you with a couple of chronic health conditions, neurodivergent, still trying to be like, you know what, I'm going to do 100K in a month for men's mental health, even though I have my own struggles. Like, even if you didn't get to that end result, the people are going to acknowledge that you've got a beautiful heart and you're trying to do something amazing, you know? Like, yeah, definitely give yourself way more credit.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'd love to see men, not saying that I'm doing this so men reciprocate, but I'd love to see the same volunteer efforts given when it comes to endo, and like, if you are a partner, sibling, father, grandfather, whoever you may be, the biggest thing that you can do is just like share information, have conversations about it, being like, hey, I don't actually know much about this, can you tell me? Like, yeah, not to say that men don't already do that, but like, yeah,
we need to see more of it. It's without question.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that the reason why I did this challenge is so I can say, well, I did this, and
God,
like,
no,
step back. But like, I did it because I am so passionate about men's mental health, and it's been something that's been so prevalent throughout my whole entire childhood with men and their mental health. But I think that we could all work together to support men in their inequities, and also support women in like their inequities and inequalities.
I really agree. This is something Chelsea and I have actually talked about a lot, is how there is so much healing that actually needs to be done between men and women. I feel like we're actually getting divided away further and further from each
100%.
other. And like, I've caught myself doing it too. And like, it's still valid and warranted why we're pissed. Like, women are pissed because we've like, there's the patriarchy is like bled into society and created so much divide. Anyway, we're going on tangents.
Yeah.
So rounding out with your adeno, obviously you've like given it, so much of your story and things that have helped you. If there were any key take homes that you think people could take home, whether they think they may have adeno or they do have adeno, what would you tell them?
Get yourself a really good healthcare team that's going to provide the access to the help that you need, and say like yourself, or finding someone who does have that experience or has a receipt of success, basically. Like finding someone who like they do have reviews on their page and going to them straight away instead of just going to your GP. And it's really hard. I know I was raised in a rural, remote area of New South Wales where I went to so many different GPs and they just said I had period pain. So I would say that would be your first step, is finding someone who can advocate for you as well as advocating for yourself. And second, I would say sit with it, understand it, do your research, become equipped. Your knowledge is power. The more you can understand about your condition and your own health, the more you can advocate and say, okay, this is what I actually deserve as a bare minimum. And then that transcends into your relationships, that transcends into the care that you receive from people, that transcends into how people respond to you when you're in pain. And you can start to figure out from there, who are the people I need to keep around me whilst I am in pain, and what's going to make me most successful. In workplaces, it's really hard. Some people don't have the luxury of sick days, taking time away. So when you are experiencing that, if you have the chance, be gentle, take it slow, fall on those pain meds if you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is a condition that's gnarly, like it's deep, it's in there. It's not like endo where it's kind of teetering around the sides and not invalidating endo. But yeah, recognize what it actually is and understand you're going through something pretty hectic. And it is actually okay if you take a step back. And you will get over it mentally if you have a hard time people pleasing, but you won't get over it physically if you push yourself through. So yeah, and then just like your support network, advocating for yourself, get a good team. If you are financially troubled, and especially right now, it's a tough time for everyone, try and find ways to access as much free services as you can, or do things yourself. If you know that you are really tense in those areas, like YouTube pelvic floor exercises, and make sure that obviously they're a reputable person. It's just not some Karen from America saying, yeah, just shove a Kegel, shove a Kegel up there, babe, you'll be fine. That's where the problem is. You need to like release that around that.
If there was an episode I could recommend listening to, a couple of episodes back with co-founder Joe from Matilda, the Matilda app.
Yes, Matilda's amazing.
Yeah, they're really good because they it's created by two pelvic physios, and that the whole aim is to make affordable healthcare in your pocket, and they integrate all different modalities. And full disclosure, I am on the advisory board. But they have a whole heap of videos on there on different exercises you can do. So there are definitely lots of reputable things out there.
Well, yeah, that's where I started with that, because you directed me to Matilda. That's where I started my pelvic
awesome
thing, well, my pelvic journey. And then I went and saw someone locally. And then when that became too much of a cost and I pulled that back, then I was like, okay, what skills have I learned from that? So yeah, and if you are on a budget, look at things that you can do yourself and look at what costs are going to be the most important to you getting day by day. So that may be like the Hay system medication. That's one that I was like, okay, that's a non-negotiable. Other things I can probably do myself and manage. And so when I was at my prime with everything, I had a pelvic pain physio, I had a pain psych, I had a naturopath, I was seeing Jace, I had an exercise physiologist. I had probably as many people I could have in my team, but
it's so expensive.
It's
for most people, right?
Yeah, and so I really prioritized that at the start of my journey, and like the knowledge is power, and just starting that and just knowing what I'm working with, figuring out, okay, where are my limits in exercise? Where am I like deficient in like my natural things like iron and that sort of stuff, and just working from there. And then once you've kind of got that understanding of where you're at, if you're really struggling financially, then you can kind of drop those back, but at least you know where you're at. Yeah. It's a hard ball, and I wouldn't be able to achieve it without my support networks around me. But yeah.
And this is the thing with adeno, is that like, because there is no cure, it's more about management. It's never going to be
there's no resolution,
remission, or you know, it is like, actually one thing I wanted to bring up earlier that I think is promising in this space is that the first ever uterus transplants have been successful, and people have even carried babies with these transplants.
I actually sent that to my mum and I was like, hey sis, want to donate a uterus?
Totally.
But so there's, keep an eye out, keep yourself well informed of what's coming out in the media. Make sure it's backed and evidence-based, of course, not just the project tossing some things out.
I used to have so much faith in the project. I feel like when they first came out, it was so progressive and like they wanted to be different.
Like rinse and repeat. What do we find on Google? And not actually get a professional in to talk about it,
and
who's
sensationalized,
actually evidence-based. But and I used to get really annoyed at the start of my journey when people would say like knowledge is power. Like the best thing you can do is actually learn to advocate for yourself. And learn what advocacy is. Learn how ask people who are really good at advocating for themselves, or like who are kind of in depth in their journey. What does it mean to advocate for yourself? What are skills like writing things down, going into appointments, and what are skills you can do to build that back up again? Because if you have a history of period pain, or if you're starting your journey, you're likely to have had a minimum of 10 years of being the complete opposite and just being shut down every time or dismissed, or and that weighs heavily on your confidence too. So
absolutely.
I feel like that's
Patti, that was unbelievable. And I love, like we were talking about this before, how as neurodivergent, I would much prefer to do a neurodivergent style of conversation where we just take it wherever it needs to go, rather than having a very structured conversation and like not being able to even only just scratching the surface, right? This is what I love, is just allowing the space to talk about it all. And I feel like this is going to be so helpful for so many people. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're
honored
such
to be
a
here.
beautiful person.
As
truly. Coming up on the Jade Walker Way, I have another adenomyosis episode lined up. As you would have heard me talking about in this episode, I'm bringing on naturopath Laura Taylor, who's also a good friend of mine. And we're talking about silent adenomyosis, when you would not have expected that you've got adeno, but also may explain some things that you went through that you had no idea could have been linked to adeno. Given it's also Autism Acceptance Month, I'm also bringing on my bestie, Carly Joyce from Stretchy Minds OT, who predominantly works with neurodivergent kids and is a very neuroaffirmative practitioner and understands the autism space extremely well. She's helped me navigate my neurodivergence in so many ways, and she honestly is one of the most beautiful people that I know. So I think that's going to be an incredible conversation. So stay tuned. There's so much more to come on the Jade Walker Way.